Hello, this is Pipeline Audio for Kailua Music School. Today I'm going to show you how to make an electric ukulele out of any old ukulele, and I'm going to show you how to do it cheap. So first we're going to need a couple things. Coffee is always good. A piezo transducer from Radio Shack, part number 273-0073. This should cost you about $2.50. A regular old female 1/4-inch jack, mono or stereo will do. Your wire strippers. Some solder. This is 60-40, not the European stuff, but either way. And of course, a soldering iron. If you work in audio of any kind or are a musician, I really recommend you have a soldering iron. This one is a Weller WTC 100. It's $40 and there's tips available for it everywhere. And here's the victim, a nice cheap ukulele. We also need some shielded wire, some safe release tape, a drill and 3/8 inch drill bit, and a hot glue gun. So first I got to crack open the transducer. We just want the transducer itself, not the case. So you're going to find a way to break the case in half and get to the guts inside and try not to damage them too much. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to tell you about why I got interested in this project. I kept hearing the name Taimane Gardner, a gifted ukulele player from Hawaii, and I went to check out what she was about. Now, some of you cynical rock guitar players from the mainland, after watching some of her videos, you might ask, is this lady really making a career out of playing beginning rock guitar exercises? But it's really not that simple. For one thing, the ukulele is really small. Imagine you're spending your whole time above the 12th fret. If you've been playing Scorpions or Michael Schenker your whole life, you might be able to pull this off, but what she's doing is pretty hard. I'm not going to say she's an Yngwie Malmsteen or a Tommy Gibbons or a Juliet Valduriez, but what she's doing is not easy, and definitely not as easy as she makes it look. The other really tricky part about what she's doing is that you can think of an ukulele as a pitched percussion instrument. It has a really fast attack, an instant decay, and almost no sustain. So you rock guitar players probably already can think of an idea of how to handle this. You're going to need a lot of compression in one form or another. And that's why we're going to make this thing electric. So now that I've got the transducer free, I'm going to measure out some wire. I'm going to strip both ends, and I'm going to separate the ground from the signal wire inside. And you should end up with something like this. You've got your ground and signal wire separated and ready to go. So now I'm going to take the female 1/4-inch jack and I'm going to plug it onto a male 1/4-inch jack, which will keep you from burning your fingers and make it a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to tin the female 1/4-inch jack's terminals. Next, I'm going to tin the cable itself. Make sure I have the ground really well in tin so it's nice and stiff, and the signal end nice and clean and ready to go. Now this looks like something you need 3 hands to do, but you could use a device to hold the wires for you, or after some practice you'll be doing it with just 2 hands. Okay, so now it's time to solder the signal cable onto the female 1/4-inch jack. Make sure you know which end is positive and which end is ground. You can look at the jack itself, or you can use a continuity checker, and you'll be able to figure it out. Cut your ground wire to a reasonable length so you don't get any shorts. And I always like to say that a good electrical connection is also a good mechanical connection. So as you solder these things on, give them a yank. You don't want this thing coming loose on the inside of your ukulele. Now that the signal wire is connected to the female 1/4 inch jack, it's time to take a look at the transducer. First, I'm going to get rid of the factory mounted wires. They're too short and they're not shielded. But you got to be careful here. This is kind of easy to damage. So just put the soldering iron on for long enough to get those wires off and no longer. And now solder the signal cable onto the transducer. Positive in the center, and the ground's going to go on the outside. Next, I'm going to check my pickup setup by holding it up against the outside of an ukulele, plugging it into an amp, and seeing what happens. I should be able to hear something here. If not, it's time to go back a few steps. So that seemed to test just fine. So next thing I'm going to do is loosen the strings a whole lot and tape them back away from the sound hole so you can get in there. So really get those strings out of the way. You don't want to be dealing with this in the next part. And so now look inside the ukulele for bracing. You're going to want to find a place where you can put your 1/4 inch jack without hitting anything really important. You want just a nice flat, easy to get to spot. So I'm using a little violin mirror to look for my bracing. Now I've found a good spot without bracing, so I'm going to tape up where I'm going to drill the hole. This will keep your finish from cracking, or should help keep it from cracking anyway. I'm going to start with a small drill bit just to get a pilot hole started. And hopefully it should go right through. That means you didn't hit any bracing. So I'm going to progressively go up in drill bit sizes until I finally get to the 3/8 inch or the 1/2 inch, depending on what size 1/4 inch jack you're using. Some of the shells are bigger than others. In this case, it's a 1/2 inch. Okay, the drilling's all done, so I'm going to take the tape off and I'm going to put the 1/4-inch jack inside. Now, if you've been around studios a lot, you're real familiar with the fish tape, but in this case, one might not really work so well. But you've got to find a way to pull that 1/4-inch jack through, so what I'm going to do is just use a long piece of solder. I'm going to feed it through the hole that we drilled for the jack, and I'm going to pull it through the sound hole of the ukulele. Once that's done, I'm going to tie it around the female 1/4-inch jack, and hopefully I should be able to pull it through without it falling out, but still be able to take it out when I need to. So here we go. Usually this takes a couple tries. This is one of those things where it's kind of like playing Operation. You got to just wiggle it just right, and eventually you'll get it. So slide your washer and your nut down the wire, and you'll probably drop the jack back into the ukulele a couple times after you do that. And thread them on by hand as much as you can right here. But try not to spin it so much that you break your solder connections that you made earlier. So now that it's through, I'm going to push on the solder, and hopefully it'll pop through, and then I can yank it out the front of the ukulele. Yay! Okay, now I'm going to use some needle nose on the exposed threaded part of the jack, and I'm going to use a 1/2-inch wrench to tighten down the nut itself. Don't tighten it too much. These ukuleles aren't very thick, so you don't want to snap it and break through the wood. But do make sure it's secure. And here comes the really unfun part. So this is how I do it. I'm just going to hot glue the transducer itself, and I'm going to shove it in the sound hole as far as I can, as close to the bridge as I can. And this is going to hurt. I don't really know a way to do it without hurting. I'm sure there's a way, but you can see it's not too fun. But it does work. And as soon as it cools off a little bit, get in there and just shove it up against there and make sure it sticks hard. At this point, you should have an electric ukulele, so let's try it out. Make sure it's making the noises it's supposed to make. Pull off the tape, retune it, and give it a go. So it looks like everything works, and just a couple of notes. You could add a volume control to this, right now this thing's on full blast as soon as you plug it in, and that can be a project for another day. So this has been Pipeline Audio for Kailua Music School, and signing out.